This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
I didn't know Albie Hurwit at all until a day when I got a call at the newspaper from the public relations person at the Hartford Symphony saying, this is a heads up to let you know that at our next concert we're going to be playing a piece by a retired radiologist who has no musical experience or training whatsoever.
Because Albie has never had the classical training that most composers, most professional musicians have had, he comes to it as a real natural.
Every composer, accomplished classical composer, started music lessons at an early age. Not me. Every composer was a master of at least one instrument. I played the piano poorly. Every composer spent most of their life dedicated to learning, composing, and composing. Not me.
So I don't mind saying there was a kind of a skepticism, I think, not only on my part, but maybe on the part of other concertgoers. And the whole thing was a kind of an instant phenomenon.
To have written a symphony and not gone through a classical musical education is a true phenomenon. I mean, it really is. And I'm not sure I can even think of another example of it.
We don't have many examples of composers continuing to be productive into that portion of their lives. We're all sort of discovering this together. It just isn't something that there's much of a track record on.
Time is most definitely a factor.
But since I'm going to live to be 120, I got plenty of time.
This man really did have an unusual talent, and everybody was suddenly interested in what was going to be the next step.
A few things have happened along the course here that are inexplicable to me. There's no way on a rational, realistic basis that I can explain them. A few things have happened in this musical adventure that are along those lines, that how did it happen?
My name is Larry Hurwit. There's three brothers, Albert and Bobby and me. I'm the oldest. Albert's the middle, Bobby's the youngest.
I'm interested in sports, Boy Scouts, animals, reading, and classical music. It confirms my memory.
And what I'm going to tell you now is a very interesting story.
The four of us, me, my mother, Bobby, Larry.
My mother was a very lovely, devoted person. She loved music.
Father and mother dancing, and she played the piano by ear.
She was remarkable because she could go hear a pianist play and come back and replicate what she heard.
She would go into the movies in the dark and write down the melodies with numbers. She'd go home
and have scrawled out in her method the tune and be able to play by ear, popular tunes by ear.
Even though she didn't read music.
Albert had the same ear for music. He could sit down at the piano and play. He couldn't read and he couldn't write.
But the only thing I was forbidden to do was to touch his classical records, which were everything to him.
There are records totally forgotten about. My father had a furniture store, and once, instead of giving me the 50 cents or $1 or whatever he underpaid me, there were some classical records there, and I asked, could I listen to them? Well, I took those home and played them on the record changer, and for probably a good year, I would really listen to those. And I was enraptured of them. But then girls came along and sports came along, and that was it for music, period. I have to think that those sounds and feelings from music have been percolating for years and years.
oh, I married this, funny little kid. I didn't know he was going to become a doctor.
At college, I wanted to major in music, but I flunked the sight reading test, and so I became a doctor instead.
I think he pushed it aside. I think it was probably there. But as I said before, he's a perfectionist, and he had to be the best doctor.
I had been exposed to medicine in an unfortunate way in that while at college, my mother became very sick and died of cancer. Radiology is problem solving of the highest nature, and I have always loved problem solving. Puzzles, and I love problem solving. As a physician, particularly a diagnostic radiologist, while in the trenches, the blinders are on. The only thing I'm thinking of are the visual stimuli that I'm getting, whether it's a breast exam or a chest x-ray or anything. The rationale, scientific stimuli. There is no emotion, nothing from the heart. This is the heart right here. The blinders are on. It is just science, brain, and no emotion. Cut. A composer. The exact opposite. There was an old upright piano. I sat down at this piano and just started poking around and realized I could play Yankee Doodle Dandy with one finger. And then I could really play it through. Within a week, I was playing Irving Berlin songs. I taught myself to play by ear. And then I started to compose. I had to write it after my mother died. I have no memory of why I wrote it, what I was feeling, how I wrote it, etc.
He's played it for many, many years, and our kids all love it, and everybody cries when he plays it. So.
When I compose, I like to say to myself, turn off the brain. Don't be a critic as you're composing. When I would compose, I'd think, yeah, okay, I'm composing. But I started to feel that maybe I had the goods. There was no concept that I'm a composer. But at night, I'd be hearing melodies. Music was in my head.
Albie said, I feel I've got a symphony inside me. Could you help me get it out? So I said, well, you must let me hear some of your music. And it was only then that I began to see that this man has what they say about Irving Berlin, the songwriter, an endless flow of melodies inside him.
And the more I heard them, the more I realized I had to try and get them out. So I took a chance and decided to try composing music. I left medicine. I miss it to this very day.
He weighs the odds on what he could do and what he can't do, and if he thinks the odds are even maybe barely in his favor, he does it.
Like a gambling man. If the odds were 1 on 2, of course you take it. If the odds are 1 in a million, you never take it. Where on that continuum are you?
And what Albie was asking me to do was help him craft the biggest musical form, second only to opera, that exists in the classical world, which is a full-length symphony.
The odds of me composing a symphony was, 1 in 100,000. It's never been done before like this.
And we rolled up our sleeves and went in at the deep end.
I woke up one morning and felt there was something that was going to come out, and said, I just better play something and record it into the computer. And I sat down, and as I'm talking to you now, I played boom, 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 bum, 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 bum. It's not like I worked to do anything. It was there. I don't know what emotion caused it, why I did it, what I had in my head, any kind of, I don't know, music theory or harmony. It was there.
He just has music in him, and it just comes out. And for him, it seems easy.
It's just coming out, pouring out, and luckily, with the equipment, I can do it. Ordinarily, as I'm composing or thinking or playing, I'll sit down and I'll just play some notes or hear something and do it. Well, there's the seed of a little something. A musician would know I'm starting on G, G sharp, A sharp, but it doesn't matter to me. So I heard this, and then this chord seems to go to it. But this doesn't sound good. A whole new feeling, a whole new ambience to the music. Which then led me almost directly to and then all of a sudden, from something that could be a little bit of a pop tune or something, it takes on a symphonic feeling. And now this is all in the process of 15 minutes. Now. Wrong. Okay. So I was just sitting at the piano a minute ago. It's in my head, and I can't write it down fast like any composer would. So my way of writing it down is to play it, and it immediately records in the computer what I played, exactly how I played it. Then the fun is add instruments and see what it sounds like with different instruments. The whole structure is wrong. I don't care. I can play it back. I can change everything that's wrong. It's a mess because it's screwed up. That's right. I don't know what key I'm in, see. Oh, the problem. This only goes down to there. Bass notes, treble notes. Now, see, that's readable. Anybody could read that, except me. But anybody can read that. Okay, we did that. Okay, so remember the symphony started the same way. Okay, first I have to add a track.
Even though Alby's symphony is based on a family history story and one of loss and one of separation and reunification, it's a very human story. You don't need to know that story to be moved by this music. But if you do, of course, it may make it go even deeper.
The 4 parts of the symphony are entitled Origins, Separation, Remembrance, Arrival. My mother's side is much more tied to the symphony. That starts in Prague in 1736, where a man named Kalman was born, and he was my great-great-great-grandfather. And around the late 1700s, his family moved eastward as part of the diaspora in which the Jews were being persecuted. And they ended up in a little village called Milkowitz, Russia. And they lived there for several decades, but then persecutions again in the form of the pogroms. Here's my grandfather and my grandmother. This is Isaac, my mother's father, the one who was told, "You must go." This is my grandfather, my grandmother, and my mother. The elder generations told the younger generations, including my grandmother, my grandfather, their children, my mother was the youngest of the six, that they must separate and come to America. And the younger generations did immigrate to America. As we're pulling in there, he said, this is where the steamers would anchor, and then the smaller boats would shuttle them back and forth to Ellis Island. And so just where we landed is about where my family, both sides, landed. And in composing this, I pictured myself in the situation of the elders. I hate to say it, but I'm an elder now. And I would picture myself if I had to say to my 3 children and their spouses and my 6 grandchildren, you must go, and you must go, and we'll never see each other again. And that's what I hope is in the music.
Some people are better at being dedicated, others more easily give up. And this idea of his will to write this symphony was indomitable from the word go.
You can write the greatest piece of music ever created, and if it's not performed, it's not done. It doesn't exist. Most composers never get performed.
That's not an opportunity we have with Beethoven, but we do with Albee.
How does that work? When the clarinet first comes in, bum, 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 it's bum, 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 bum.
Let's do it one more time.
And that clarinet came in with that squeal at the end. Well, there were multiple things like that, which were very exciting to me to be able to have that kind of input. My challenge there, which sounds very strange, is I have my score of music I composed, and damn it, I can't read it very well.
If I can pull this back even slower, starting here, da-da. I could read his mind out of the score. I would call Albee a friend now, somebody I know intimately because I know his soul now. His music is in his soul.
The word time in music has multiple meanings. You inevitably think, had Albee taken up music as a young man rather than medicine, what might he have written by this stage in his life?
And he's just got all this music in his head or his heart or wherever the creative process comes from. Ask any artist. It's there. They sit down, they draw, they sculpt, they dance. It's there.
What's been on my mind lately is, it's obvious I don't have unlimited years. I'm not going to be around forever. I hope the music has a much longer life than I do.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.